Hey budget gardeners, Vita Loca here. Join me today as we dig up, divide, and transplant some Hosta and Heuchera. So let's go. We are in the front of my house along my front walkway, and we're currently looking at a flower bed that we worked on earlier this season. We had come in here and we had removed 3 small leaf rhododendrons because they were getting too large for this space. And on that same day, we came in and we cleaned up an area right here where I have a pond. There were a bunch of perennials that really like shade, and we moved them from there to here. And even though those plants were thriving in their location over there, what I found was those plants like shade, and they were getting shade from the rhododendrons that were in this space here. However, once we removed the rhododendrons and we moved the shade-loving plants in this location, what I found is these shade-loving plants suffered. The 2 main plants that are suffering in this area are Hosta as well as Heuchera, also known as coral bells. So today we're going to come in and we're going to dig up these plants and we're going to move them to a new location. And if any of the plants can be divided, we might as well divide them as well. There are a total of 5 Hosta plants here. And they looked really pretty when they were around my pond and when they were getting shade. But if you come in for a closer look, you can see that they are really getting scorched by the sun. And not only that, they're not as vibrant. They should be a much brighter color. In fact, these hosta right here are supposed to be a blue color. They just are not happy in this space. The same holds true for the Heuchera or coral bell that are in here. They are not as vibrant as they should be. They are definitely getting faded out, or the colors just are getting bleached out by the sun. The only plant that's looking okay in this space are the carex. So for today, we're just going to leave the carex in here and we're not going to focus on those. So let's get to work. We have 5 hosta and 4 coral bells that we're going to dig up, divide, and move to new places in the yard. The blooms look really pretty right now. However, I have so many other flowers in my yard that are there for the pollinators, the hummingbirds, butterflies. So at this time, I want to go ahead and just remove the flower stalks. I want the plants to put their energy into the roots, so we're going to go ahead and just take off as much as we can at this time. So I'm going to follow the flower stalk all the way down to the base and go ahead and cut it. And I'm going to use hand pruners to do that job. And then what I'm going to do is cut up the flower stalks into smaller pieces so that they break down quicker in my compost pile. The next thing I want to do is remove any leaves that do not look good on my hosta plants. It's a great time to just clean up these plants and remove any of these leaves that don't look good. The key is just making sure I leave behind at least a few leaves. So we're just going to focus on the leaves that look the worst. Now that we've removed all the flower stalks from the hosta plants, as well as any of the leaves that didn't look very good, the next step is to go ahead and dig them. I'm going to use a large shovel to do the job. Also, I have mulch that I put down earlier this season, so I'm going to go ahead and pull the mulch back so I can make it a little bit cleaner when I do this job. I'm just moving the mulch aside, and I'm just going to use a large shovel to dig out the hosta. If this was a very large hosta, then I might need to go on all sides of the plant in order to dig it. Whenever you dig up any plant, including hosta, you never want to dig right at the base of the plant. You don't want to hurt your plant. You want to dig out a few inches away from the base. So now I can go in from the other side of the hosta plant and dig from here. And I'm choosing to remove the soil from the base of my hosta plant because I don't want to make a big hole in the space here. I would have to then replace the soil, and we can just clean up our mess that we made. This is a very small hosta plant, but I want to talk to you a little bit about dividing hosta. I have a lot of hosta in my yard. In fact, I have one area that I call my hosta garden, and I'll take you there in a minute. When it comes to dividing hosta, you can divide your hosta really any time. It's preferred to divide them in the spring or the fall months, but honestly, I've had a lot of success dividing them even during the summer months. If you are going to divide your hosta during the summer months, just make sure you're giving your plants plenty of water after you've made the divisions. I'm going to put a link to some other videos I've made when it comes to dividing hosta plants down in the description below. There are a lot of different tools you can use when it comes to dividing hosta. A popular tool is just a large shovel. So in the early spring months, for example, you could come in to a hosta plant that's in your landscape and divide straight down into it with your large shovel. Another tool that a lot of people like to use is a hand pruning saw. I love using that tool, especially for dividing larger pieces of hosta. And when it comes to the hand pruning saw, I prefer to use that when I've dug up a big chunk of hosta plants. I lay the hosta plant on its side, and then I can cut right through the roots with my hand pruning saw. And then there are times when you've dug up a chunk of hosta plants and you can actually just pull them apart. So lots of different ways to accomplish the same task. This is just a small plant here, but come on in and I'm going to show you how I divide this plant. You could just take this and plant this out in your landscape as is, but I want to show you how I go about dividing it. So the first thing I like to do is see if I can tug it apart. And I'm using my hands and I'm noticing even though there's only 2 plants inside of here, I am not able to divide this. So I like to use this hand pruning saw. This is by Corona, but there are a lot of different ones out there. I bought this on Amazon. So I'm going to press this button right here. And you always want to be careful with sharp tools. I can see that I can make a division just with these 2 plants right in the center there. But again, I have videos showing you how I've divided much bigger sections, so check out that video down below. I'm going to come in with the hand pruning saw, and I'm going to go ahead and be very careful with my hands, and I'm going to cut. Now I can tease apart the roots, and we basically just turned 1 plant into 2 plants. Who doesn't love free plants? We just turned 1 plant into 2 plants. Now imagine if you had a large hosta in your yard that needs division. You could do the same exact thing, and I bet you could get a bunch of plants that way. So I'm going to bring you over to my hosta garden where, again, I've divided a whole bunch of hosta in there to get me lots of free plants, and we're going to go ahead and get these planted. So we're heading to my backyard now, and this is an area that gets a lot of shade. And for that reason, the hosta that I have in this space thrive. They just love this area. So I want you to see all the plants that are in here. And these are all just plants that I've come in and just divided over time. So we're just going to find a place inside of here that we can go ahead and plant the hosta that we just divided. And since these divisions are so small, I can use my hand shovel to make the hole and put the hosta in there. I want to make sure that the roots are beneath soil level, as well as a small amount of the crown, but otherwise the rest of the plant should be above soil level. This area is on drip irrigation, so the soil is nice and wet. If the soil was dry, I would want to make sure that I'm adding some water into the planting hole. So let's see if we need to make our hole a little bit larger. And I think just a little bit, just to accommodate the roots. Perfect. Now we can go ahead and just backfill. Push down and backfill some more. And that's it. After I'm done dividing and moving all of the hosta, we'll go ahead and tackle the coral bells. Now that we've removed the hosta, we're going to go after the Heuchera. They really should be looking so much more beautiful than this. And that's okay. I have a perfect place where I want to move these. And even though they are small pieces, I am again going to show you my process for dividing coral bells or Heuchera. And I have videos that show that as well, and I'll link them down below. But let's do one together. If you had a very large piece of coral bells, you could definitely use a large shovel to dig out your plant. But this is such a small piece that I'm going to try to just dig it out with a hand shovel. Did you know that most perennials like to be divided every 3 to 5 years? They really do. It's such a great way to add plants to your landscape, and it just makes sure that your plants remain healthy and happy. So once again, I'm going to dig out just a few inches from the side of the plant, and it just popped right out. I'm going to remove the dirt from here. Again, you don't have to do that. You could always take the soil with you, but just make sure you replace it in the area that you took it from. When we transplanted these in the springtime, I had divided them at that time. And that's why they're not very big pieces. But just for the sake of showing you, I figure I might as well show you the process for dividing your coral bells in case you want to do it as well. These plants right here are beautiful. We're leaving them for today. They are a type of carex, but I would like to move them on a different day. But for today, we're just going to keep them here because they don't look bad. And the way I look at it is they're providing some interest in this area. I'm going to do the same thing that I did with the Hosta. I'm going to follow down the spent blooms or flower stalks to the base just to clean up our plant. I'm also going to come in and remove any leaves that just do not look good, that have gotten a bit too crispy. What's nice about the Heuchera is that it will send out new leaves during the growing season. I don't want to remove all the leaves, but I want to remove the ones that just don't look very good. I have the perfect place for these Heuchera. I'm really looking forward to adding them to that place. Sometimes things happen for a reason, I feel. We have a small Heuchera here. Again, if you had a nice big Heuchera, you could do the same thing. You could divide this right in the ground by taking a shovel right down the middle of it, or you could dig up the whole thing and still take a shovel to this. You could take something like hand pruners and try to cut your way through, but I would prefer to use something like a hand pruning saw. So let's go ahead and open that up. And again, you're always looking for a good place to make your division. And before you use any hand tool, try to break apart your plant and see if you can break it apart. In this case, I am able to break this apart into another section here. And here is a part of the root, and then there's some roots here. Let's say there were no roots on this base here. It would still grow, believe it or not. This is one of the easiest plants to propagate. As long as you have a little bit of the crown, you should be fine. You want to make sure you're planting this in soil that remains wet, and as long as the soil is wet, consistently wet, it will root for you. But we do have a little bit of root on the bottom here. But let's say that you were wiggling this and it wouldn't fall apart, because I'm noticing we have two more sections here, one over here and one over here, and it's not coming apart for us. We would go ahead and we could use our hand pruning saw, and we can make a cut right down the center here. And my hand's going to get in the way because I need to be able to hold both sides, but I am showing you that we're cutting it right down the center. Let's see if we can pull it apart. And we can. This section has a very small amount of root, but like I said, as long as you have the crown here, you can go ahead and get it placed and it will create more roots for you. And we just turned that one small piece into 3 smaller pieces. And I'm just going to go ahead and just divide a few more. I'm able to pull these apart. I won't divide this down any more than this. We have 2 pieces here. Let's just leave that as is. And we can leave this section as is. So we just turned 1 piece into 2 pieces. And remember, we started with 4 pieces of Heuchera. You might not want to divide yours down this small, and that's totally okay. The purpose of this video is just to show you what I'm working on in my garden today and my process for dividing these shade-loving plants. And I love free plants, so I'm going to get as many as I can. My intent is hopefully not to divide these for probably another 3 years so they can bulk up. And right now I'm in a shady area. When it comes to dividing my plants like this, I prefer to do it on a cool day and in the shade. If you have to do it on a warm day, that's fine too. Just make sure you're giving your plants plenty of water. And we just turned 4 plants into 15 little plants. I have an area up along my driveway that I call my driveway flower bed. There are a bunch of coleus and a bunch of impatiens that I started from seed. You can see that they're doing really well here, and that's because this area gets quite a bit of shade. So we're actually just going to be tucking in the coral bells in the center of the bed here. There are a lot of other plants happening in here, especially annuals. There are some impatiens that I just tucked in recently, and that's why they're not blooming. There are also some other coral bells that are in here that are pretty, but they don't have a lot of color to them. So I figured by adding in our coral bells in this area, will really add a little bit of pop of color as well as interest. My goal for this flower bed is to pack it with all the different kinds of heuchera that I have in my yard. So right now we have one variety that's in here, or one kind. I don't know the name of it. I've had it for a number of years and I got it from my mother-in-law's yard. In fact, most of the plants in my yard are from my mother-in-law's garden, and I've divided them over the last many years. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to be tucking in all these heuchera all throughout the center space here. And I can't wait to see what this space looks like within the next few years. So I'm just using my hand shovel and I'm digging a hole. I want to make sure that the roots are beneath soil level. It's very important with heuchera to have the crown of the plant at or slightly above soil level. You don't want to bury the crown. A common question that I get asked is what to do in the spring months when the heuchera have heaved up or come out of the ground, because that does happen oftentimes. When the ground thaws and freezes and thaws and freezes, you find that your heuchera are sticking above soil level. You can actually go ahead, dig them up, and replant them to be flush with soil level. It's an easy thing to do, and I highly recommend you do that because you don't want a plant that's sticking above soil level and looking funny. And that's a great time to go ahead and divide your heuchera if you want to, if you're going to go through the effort of digging it up anyway. Because I have so many areas in my yard to fill, it makes sense for me to divide my plants down small. And I feel like it's worth the effort because then I can just let those plants rest for 3 to 5 years. And then I can come back in, shop my yard, and divide the plants all over again. The soil is nice and wet because we have irrigation in here. Otherwise, I would be adding water to the planting hole. And another thing I could be doing is giving the plants water after I put them in the ground. But the irrigation runs on a daily basis, and it's a cool day, so I don't need to add any water at this time. I'm going ahead and I'm making sure that the roots are beneath soil level. I don't want the crown to be beneath soil level. It's flush with it, if not a little bit higher than soil level. And I can go ahead and press down. And since I have mulch in here, I can go ahead and replace my mulch, put it back in, just like that. I can assure you that these coral bells will do so much better in this area. And what I really love is that they have that nice marbled leaf look to them. So they complement really nicely in this space. And if I didn't divide them down the way I did, then I wouldn't be able to have spread them around all around this flower bed. I feel that a big part of gardening is learning to be patient. Be patient and the plants will do what they need to do over time. These plants are all very small, but they are mighty. And give it a few years, they will fill in very nicely. And we're left with opportunity. I feel like we started this spring with opportunity when we removed those rhododendrons. And I mentioned in that video that we were temporarily placing some plants in this space. I have some exciting plans for this space. So stay tuned, friends, and I'll bring you along on that journey. The moral of the story is if you have a space in your garden that you don't love, that's not thriving, take a look at it and see what you can change about it. There are times in our garden when we have a sunny area and all of a sudden those sun-loving plants are not thriving because the sunny area has turned into a part sun or even a part shade or shady location. And the opposite happened here. We had rhododendrons that were shading out a bunch of plants, and it was kind of a shade garden. We removed the rhododendrons, we put some plants in here that were in the shady part of the bed, and they were not thriving. Why live with it, right? I want to enjoy this space. So that's why we went ahead and removed the shade-loving plants. We now have some fun opportunity, and we can get creative again. Let me know in the comments below if there's an area in your garden that has changed over time. Was it sunny and now it's shady? Was it shady and now it's sunny? Or have weeds taken over? I'd love to hear from you. And I'm hoping that this video inspired you, and I want to know, what are you going to do to change that space? Stay tuned. We have more work to do in here, but until the next video, make it a great day with gardening.